Welcome to a morning edition of Crime Time with DutyRon and Ed Wallace. We are on the air this morning for this breaking news out of Delphi, Indiana. The Delphi, Indiana community has been in suspense for going on almost 6 years. It's 5.5 years since Abby and Libby were murdered on the bridge or off on a property off the bridge. We don't even know exactly where this happened, but we're going to get into it. Ed, how you doing this morning?
Good, Ron. Yourself?
Yeah, not too bad. I mean, I took the day off. I got to take my son to the doctor. I'm actually not feeling that great. I'm a little under the weather. I'm getting a little sniffles going on. So I called out. I banged an E-day last night. So I got the day off, and here we are. What's your thoughts on this, Ed? I mean, what do you think is going to come from a multi-agency press conference? They're talking about the local, state, and the U.S. Marshals, the prosecutor's office. Sounds like it's going to be a big one. What's your thoughts on it, Ed?
Yeah, it's interesting. That this case has been quiet for so long, and then bam, and then it's funny how it broke just before the weekend, and like they're leaving us all in suspense to have the press conference today. You would think, the politicians, the mayor involved, or all of this people that may be involved here would want to have had this conference as soon as they can, but they held it off until today. I guess some important person wasn't available Friday to come on to the press conference, and they ordered it today. But it's going to be interesting because this guy was not on the radar.
No, and Richard Allen, aka Ricky Matthew Allen, 50 years old, never even spoken about, up until this point. It was just a shock to everybody who's following this case. But, the thing of it is I had spoke on this over the weekend. You and I both know these executives that hold these press conferences aren't the typically, the ones that are at the podium for the most of the time. They're the executives. They got this Monday through Friday thing going on, and they work weekends. Don't get me wrong; they're always on call. But when they want to have a press conference with multi agencies, as they talked about, the U.S. Marshals, probably the FBI, the state police, the local. I think it's 2 local jurisdictions, Delphi, and another sheriff that you see in all of these press conferences. They're all got to get together, and they got their personnel here. And I think, although I don't feel we're going to get a lot, but we're definitely going to get new stuff. They have to talk about this guy who is under arrest.
I'm wondering why the marshals are involved, unless there is some kind of pedophile or sex trafficking nexus here.
Yeah, and I think that there is, because we looked at a possible co-conspirator who was locked up, this Anthony Schatz, Keegan Kline character, a real seedy, shady guy, and it was alleged and purported that he communicated with one of the girls, I believe, through Snapchat the night before this heinous act. So, we'll see what happens, in a very short time. I'm monitoring this press conference at 10 a.m. We got another 10 minutes before this thing should go live. And, I'm looking at the YouTube streets, and I'm also looking at the press corps, see what they're talking about. Thank you for that super chat. Where is that coming from? Is that
Dubai?
Yeah,
Arab Emirates.
Yeah, spit it out.
Yes, shukram.
Yes, thank you for the super chat there. We appreciate it. Rhino Girl coming in with 250 AED. Appreciate that. Let's say hello and thanks to our Patreon supporters, the channel members, and all the folks who positively engage on Crime Time with DutyRon. You guys are really what makes this a great place, and we give thanks and praise to you guys. We are going to be covering the Delphi, Indiana press conference. We'll bring it to you live. Multi-agencies, it's reported. I watched the previous year's pressers. The pressers from previous years were quite detailed and quite emotional. The superintendent from the Indiana State Police is he's quite invested in this, and I think everybody that is investigating this case is definitely locked in. Did you get a chance to look at any of those pressers or anything in the past, Ed? And maybe
Yeah, I did. He was very emotional. He was, he's saying, he was going to get this guy one way or another. He's going to get him, and
Right.
come hell or high water, and he got him.
Yeah.
So he was very passionate about it. And then there's been a lot of bad press on this case as well. Saying, there was a lot of disappointment in the family, obviously, of
Yeah.
the girls, and they didn't feel the law enforcement agencies were taking this case seriously. And so, it just goes to show you, that they were in the background working hard, trying to put this together, and they did it. And let's see. Let's see. Hopefully, we'll get some good details.
Yeah. Because Ed, as we all know, February of this year coming up, February 13th of 2023, will be 6 years.
6 years, yeah.
Yeah. So these
And
guys
this
never gave up.
and this guy's a local.
I showed the map. He is just a short hop, skip, and a jump away from the bridge area and the property where these two poor girls, Abby and Libby, were found. I'm monitoring closely WFLA. I'm going to put my good friend JB. He's got Jennifer Koffendorfer. I'm going to shoot her off a message and ask her if she wants to fire off maybe some of her thoughts and feelings with us here today, if she's got a chance. I mean, I didn't prearrange anything with her, but I'm gonna definitely give her a quick text to see if she can add something into the conversation. Just for the new people that are joining in, Ed and I are retired New York City police detectives. Ed spent 24 years in the NYPD. I spent a little bit over 20 in the NYPD, and he worked 15 of those 24 years in a crime scene unit, and he worked all over the place. But he is a evidence collection DNA expert. I know, Ed, you'd probably chime in a little bit more. He's testified at many trials for the prosecution and for defense after his retirement, and he continues to teach forensics and all different aspects of crime scene analysis. So, Ed, if you want, maybe just give some of these new people that are joining in a little overview on your experience, because it's vast and wide.
Okay, well, I'm a certified senior crime scene analyst from the NYPD. I did 15 years in the crime scene unit, investigated thousands of major case crime scenes, and testified in hundreds of trials as a expert declared by the court, because only the court can declare somebody an expert. If you ever watched My Cousin Vinny, you saw how his fiance was voir dired and challenged by the defense, and that is a reality, but not so funny. Anyhow,
My
getting back to
father's
this,
a mechanic. My great uncle's a mechanic. All right.
yeah, but what in way makes that you qualified for? Okay, I love that movie. Anyhow, that said, yeah, so I've trained all over the world in forensics, thousands and thousands of hours of training and certifications in post-blast investigation, certifications in fire investigation, bloodstain pattern analysis, shooting reconstruction, ballistic trajectories, hazardous materials, weapons of mass destruction, and so forth. And then after I retired, which I retired out of the counterterrorism, the Commissioner of Counterterrorism Bureau office, because I was taken out of crime scene in my last few months on the job to do the secret squirrel stuff that you all laugh about. And then retired and opened up my own forensic consulting company. And I have contracts with the Department of Homeland Security, with Department of State, and with the Department of Defense. And I travel all over the world and perform forensic counterterrorism consulting and teaching and so forth. I also written co-authored 4 textbooks on forensics and so forth.
That's why we all love you, Ed. And you know what? I love to have you, share with our community all of your expansive knowledge, your vast knowledge in these areas that we speak about. And that's what makes this a really great place, is that not only do we have you, Ed, we have your Rolodex, which is pretty advanced. It's deep, that Rolodex. So you have a lot of contacts. So we definitely appreciate you spending the time here with us. I know everybody here within this community is just tickle pink to have you on all of these live streams. Listen, let's get back to this thing here. Forensics is going to play a huge role in the prosecution of Ricky Matthew Allen, right? how important is that? At the crime scene, February 14th, they discovered their remains at what they, in their words, was a very bloody and staged crime scene. How important is that going to come into play here in the prosecution?
Absolutely. I mean, they're going to have forensic evidence. I figured they have at least some DNA. You know, it was funny because I recall when am I researching this that there was research done by suspects in this case about how long DNA lasts. So I found that kind of interesting that the law enforcement was able to get that kind of data that they were searching or Googling or whatever the case may be, the internet for forensic evidence. And so I think they're going to have that at least a very strong possibility of DNA, probably some hairs and fibers. I'm thinking, you know, if these girls fought back, they may have gotten skin underneath uh, their fingernails of the suspects or suspects, you
Yeah,
know, involved here. Again, there's the Lacard transfer, the exchange principle, right? So um, if they were in fact murdered elsewhere, then they're going to have on their bodies evidence of that location where they were murdered, and then brought to this location
right.
where they left in that
And and
field.
I, and I hate to do this, but sometimes we have to do it because we're getting close to the presser. They're doing a sound check right now. Mel B sends in a question. They dug up this perpetrator that they have in custody, Richard Allen, a fire pit in his backyard a few days or a week before this arrest. So there was a lot of activity. What is your thoughts on what they could be looking at in a fire pit 5.5 years later in this new perpetrator's backyard?
Well, maybe they burned evidence. Maybe they burned clothing. Maybe they burned the souvenir they've allegedly took from the girls.
Right.
Uh,
Yeah. There was talk about that
mm,
during the recovery and the crime scene processing. They talked about this being a staged crime scene.
yeah,
That's something important. I just want to show folks Jennifer's still on screen with JB, but this is what we're going to be looking at. They have a screen in the background with the girls' pictures in the back. This is going to be probably, when I talked about it, I didn't think it was going to be a tremendous amount of information evidentiary wise. Like they're not going to expose their cards here, ladies and gentlemen. They're going to talk about the arrest and they're going to talk about what led up to this arrest. I think perhaps Ed, correct,
yeah. Look at
correct me,
how many people are at this conference.
this community is there. It's
Uh-huh.
I believe it's at a house of worship uh, in the community. And listen, everybody, there was folks that didn't even want to put their kids and let their kids go out and play. Let's listen in what JB's talking about here. Let's see.
Relatively small town in
I love
Indiana
JB.
For this press conference to actually
We've had him
feed
on
out
with us.
from all of these different press agencies. It speaks to how high profile this case has become over 5 years. True crime podcasts, live streamers here on YouTube and other social media platforms who have, of course, been following this extraordinarily closely. And this is
All right,
it
here we
live.
go.
Let's listen in.
The audio is bad. It's on them. Yeah.
Good morning. My name is Sergeant Jeremy Piers, Public Information Officer for the Indiana State Police Lafayette Post. I'd like to thank you all for being here and thank the Delphi United Methodist Church for allowing us to use their facility. This morning, we're going to provide an update on the investigation into the murders of Abigail Williams and Liberty German. Before we get started, I'm going to introduce you our speakers, Superintendent of the Indiana State Police, Doug Carter, the Carroll County Sheriff, Tobe Lesenby, and the Carroll County Prosecutor, Nick McClelland. I'd like to remind everyone that this continues to be an active and ongoing investigation. At the conclusion of this press conference, we are going to answer a limited amount of questions out of respect to the investigation and the process that will follow today. We will not discuss evidence that is related to this investigation. On behalf of the Delphi Double Homicide Task Force, thank you all for your continued support. I would now like to introduce to you our first speaker, Superintendent of the Indiana State Police, Doug Carter.
This is a good guy.
me just a second here.
It's already emotional.
I have prepared remarks.
Yeah.
But today is different because I do not want there to be any confusion or ambiguity with what I will say. Today is not a day to celebrate, but the arrest of Richard M. Allen of Delphi on 2 counts of murder is sure a major step in leading to the conclusion of this long-term and complex investigation. First, I'd like to speak directly to Anna, Mike, Becky, Kelsey, your extended families, along with the entire Delphi community that certainly has grown and now includes our nation and even many countries around the world. I am proud to report to you that today, actually last Friday, was the day. And an arrest has been made. Thanks to literally hundreds of media outlets that have been steadfast in reporting and keeping the memories of Abby and Libby front and center. Many of you in the room have developed relationships with me personally, and you know I always have a personal perspective, and today's no different. But from a very personal perspective, you all have provided inspiration and support, even while oftentimes frustrated with us and me. You continue to encourage the efforts, and you too believe that one day we would all be here participating and sharing this news. To the entire law enforcement community, which includes all local, state, and federal agencies,
I got a better feed.
far too many to specifically mention today.
I'm gonna try to change.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. We are going to continue a very methodical and committed approach to ensure that if any other person had any involvement in these murders in any way, that person or persons will be held accountable.
I'm gonna stop this for a second.
Since the murders of Abby and Libby 2,086 days ago, the daily investigative team has worked tirelessly and is certainly worthy of mention today. Specifically,
Here we go.
Sheriff Lazenby, Sheriff of Carroll County, Detectives Tony Liggett, Detective retired Kevin Hammond, former Delphi chief and now the prosecutor's investigator Steve Mullins. Sheriff of Carroll County.
Got it. I got
Detectives Tony Liggett, Detective retired Kevin Hammond, former Delphi chief and now the prosecutor's investigator Steve Mullins, State Police First Sergeant Jerry Holman, Detectives Jay Harper, Dave Vito, and Brian Harshman, along with members of the United States Marshal Service, specifically Agent Jeremy Clinton and Agent Bill Culfers. With them today is Dan McClain, the U.S. Marshal, appointed U.S. Marshal. Our state police analyst, our scientist from many different disciplines within our laboratory division, Mrs. Kathy Shank, for your incredible dedication to detail and to so many others that I know I've missed. I really believe that Abby and Libby would be proud of you for standing strong, even in the face of immense pressure and perpetual criticism. Some of these individuals have postponed retirement, passed on promotional opportunity, have dedicated personal time away from their families, given up nights, weekends, and holidays, all while in the pursuit of accountability for Abby and Libby. I know that today's announcement will not diminish your resolve, and I hope you have found just a bit of peace in this most complicated world. This is really important. While I know you are all expecting final details today, Concerning this arrest, today is not that day.
You have it.
Today's not that day. This investigation is far from complete, and we will not jeopardize its integrity by releasing or discussing documents or information before the appropriate time. Prosecutor Nick McClellan, of course, will share additional information about what we can and cannot say, and also explain to you why the probable cause affidavit is temporarily sealed by the court and not available. And by the way, he has been a tremendous asset to this team. I'm yet again asking you for your patience and please your understanding while our system of due process works. Also remember that all persons arrested are presumed innocent. All persons arrested are presumed innocent. You all will have an innate desire to subjectively interpret and then report what you think. We in the law enforcement realm cannot, and you should never allow us to, talk about what we think concerning facts, but rather discuss and share at the right time what it is we know. The time will come when additional details can be released. But again, today is not that day. It's about Abby and Libby, their families, and this community, this nation, and even our planet. The prosecutor has been very clear with law enforcement about what his expectations are, about what can and cannot be released, shared, or discussed. So we will, of course, comply. If you choose to be critical of our silence, be critical of me, not the front line. These are the folks that have committed their entire lives to a successful conclusion. In other words, a guilty verdict. As we move to the next phase of this investigation, I will continue to offer all resources that the ISP has to not only the investigative team that I anticipate growing, but also to Prosecutor McClellan as we prepare for the coming months. Again, Nick has been very resolute and very clear, and I'm most grateful for his leadership. And it's going to be really important as we move forward. Please continue offering tips that you would like to share. The many avenues to report will remain open and will be available to all. Please continue doing that. In closing, I stand before you in this church and very place where we held our first briefing nearly 6 years ago, and just hours after the murders of Abby and Libby. Right here. Pulling in today, I wasn't really sure what emotion I would experience. But peace came over me. And I didn't expect that to happen. And I hope all of you, with all the different responsibilities you have from around the planet today, have felt some of that as well. But remember, we're not done. I think what we all have experienced proves that together there's nothing we cannot do. But more importantly, giving of ourselves, all of us, giving of ourselves matters more than what we could ever receive. Abby and Libby, though in death, have had a profound effect on so many of us, on how we live, and as importantly, who we all should be. I would now like to introduce to you my friend and the Carroll County Sheriff, Tom Libby, for his remarks. Sheriff.
I believe in a God of justice and righteousness. Today, I believe that same God has provided us with justice for Abby and Libby. As Sheriff of Carroll County, Indiana, I want to publicly and sincerely thank each individual who played a role in helping us during this 5.5-year investigation. Whether it was in an investigative capacity, providing tips, cards or letters of suggestions or encouragement, phone calls, and thousands of other countless ways of communicating. I earnestly thank those who prayed for this moment in time. We now move forward through the Indiana criminal justice system, allowing the system to provide its due diligence and process in providing that justice owed Abby and Libby, their families, and this community. Thank you.
Welcome, everybody. My name is Nicholas McClellan. I'm the Carroll County prosecutor. And before we get started, I want to reiterate some of the things that Sheriff Lesenby and Superintendent Carter stated. I first want to thank both of them. They've been a great support to my office throughout this investigation. They've always been there for a phone call and always been willing to help a hand or a line of assistance to me and my office during this investigation. I want to thank the team behind me. This is the Homicide Task Force team that we've put together. Thank them and thank their families for being so understanding for the many nights they've worked away from their families, away from their children. There are many dates in a lifetime that you're going to remember. The date your children are born, the date you're married, the date you buy a first house, the date Abby and Libby went missing. One of those dates was last Friday, October 28, 2022. At that time, we had gathered evidence to formulate a PC that we submitted to the court, and the judge did find probable cause for an arrest of Richard Allen. He's been charged with 2 counts of murder for the murder of Abigail Williams and Liberty German. This investigation is still very ongoing. We're keeping the tip line open, the tip email open. We encourage everybody to continue to call in tips, not only about Richard Allen, but about any other person that you may have. For that reason and for the nature of this case, the probable cause and the charging information has been sealed by the court. I've been very clear to everybody that per the court order, we cannot talk about the evidence that's in the probable cause or the evidence that's in the charging information. That will become evident to you at some point and it'll be released, but right now is not that day. Today's about Abby and Libby, focusing on them. Mr. Allen has had his initial hearing. He's entered a preliminary plea of not guilty. The matter's been set for a pretrial on January 13th at 9 a.m., 2023, and a trial date of March 20th, 2023 at 9 a.m. He is presumed innocent. We will have an opportunity and day in court when we can present the evidence that we have against him. But until that day, he is presumed innocent. I want to open it up to a few limited questions from the audience. But again, keep in mind, we are not going to talk about the evidence that we have in this case or about the charging information. We cannot. Those things have been sealed by the court. And so I want to open up a few questions.
Prosecutor, when did Richard Allen become a suspect? And do you think
When did he become a suspect?
Again, that's part of the investigation, so I'm not going to talk about those things. What I can say is that we have probable cause established by the court for his arrest, and he is in custody. He's being held currently without bond.
How long has he been a suspect?
I'm sorry? Again, that gets into the evidence we have of the investigation, and I know from everybody it's frustrating. I know everybody, not only reporters, but the family, everybody wants to know more information. I understand it's frustrating, but my goal is to maintain the integrity of this case.
No bond.
Carter, you had said that you believe that you had spoken to the suspect or the suspect's family 2 years ago. Is this man?
You spoke to the suspect and his family 2 years ago.
I appreciate the question, but we're getting into the timeline of events, and today's not the time to do that.
Can you talk about how rare it is?
Family, and we've had 5 conversations with them. We were almost in tears pretty much when we started off this press conference. Can't imagine how emotional it is for everybody that's worked on this case. What was your conversation first like with the family, Matt, when we were able to tell them we finally got the suspect?
It was a very personal moment for me, and I think it was a very personal moment for them, for all of us that have had interaction with the family. We developed a relationship that I think is going to last at least one lifetime, and maybe a second. So it was a very, very, very sad yet a very humbling experience.
You asked for tips, new detective work. It was a reward of $325,000. Did this all come together to make this nexus? Is that a combination of all 3 things that led us to this day, or was it one or the other?
Well, eventually you'll be able to see what led us to this day. But again, today's not that day. To include the reward, you mentioned that, Raphael, about the reward itself, and again, very premature for us to talk about that. There's still a tremendous amount of work to do.
You're going to say that Abby and Libby have taught you in depth that we can remain to continue on with it.
I think probably resilience and understanding the value of each and every day. That today was the day, but I didn't anticipate they ever thought today would be their day. And I feel like I've known them for a long time. Excuse me?
Do you assume there's any other individuals involved in this case?
We haven't closed the door on the investigation. And so that's why we keep the tip line and the tip email open. And so we're not presuming anything at this point, but we're going to continue to take tips, continue to take any information anybody has. And as we've done with all the information we've gathered, we're going to look at that and examine that and see where it leads us.
You've asked the court, based on this investigation, that these documents should remain out of the public view. Can you explain, without getting into the details of what's in the documents, but this is not regular. Usually a public hearing is held. We should be able to see all the documents, right?
Sure.
You made a decision. Can you explain your decision as to why you believe that maybe for the next 30 days, no one in this room should have access to those records?
Sure. It is unusual. We don't do it very often in all the cases that we handle here in Carroll County. We did it in this case because the investigation is still open. And while all cases are important, the nature of this case has some extra scrutiny with it. And so my office, felt it was important to seal those records. There will be a public hearing on whether or not those records are going to remain sealed or not. There'll be public notice for that hearing so that everyone can attend, but there will be a hearing to determine whether or not they're going to stay sealed. But for now, to me, it's about protecting the integrity of this case. I want to have an opportunity at some point to have an opportunity in court to explain the evidence and for that not to be tarnished or tainted or anything like that. Again, he's presumed innocent. And so it was important for me in this case to do that. Hold on just a minute. We're not going to comment on that right now as part of the investigation. Again, we just encourage everybody to continue to call in tips if they have them about anybody, and we'll examine those tips.
What happened to the sound, Ron?
In the news all weekend like everybody else has,
Sorry,
and I
is it
think
back?
a lot of the members
Yeah.
of the public said it right. It's bittersweet. It's a step in the right direction. It's concerning that he's a local guy. So I think just different emotions. Again, this is a step in the right direction. This is the first step into getting into court and having a trial. And so.
All right. That concludes our press conference today.
Shortly, I will be releasing a press release that will have his photo and a couple more details that'll also be here for handout. That'll also be on the Indiana State Police Lafayette Post Facebook page. Right after this press conference, I'm going to send it out. There's also hard documents in the back. Thank you all for taking the time to be here today, and be safe as you travel home.
We didn't hear anything from the marshals.
State Police wrapping up the
Amazing.
press conference on the Delphi investigation and the very latest. What we can tell you, if you missed
Okay.
the top
Hold
of
on.
the broadcast, there has been an arrest made in
Gotta shut it
connection to the
down.
case. Richard M. Allen.
Okay. Yeah, Ed, unbelievable. We didn't hear anything from the marshals, but a lot came out that, you know, the general consensus on this thing is, as I said over the weekend, they weren't going to talk about a lot.
Yeah, you were right. I was hoping they would, but it was a lot of optics and emotion, a little substance.
Yeah.
You know, so I mean, okay, great. They got one guy, but it appears that they are not confident he acted alone, and the case is still open. So they're probably looking for a second party here. It would appear that way to me.
Hey, and to answer a couple of the questions that were in the chat, Indiana does have the capital punishment on the books. They haven't executed somebody since 2009 there. So, you know, does this case fall into capital punishment? Yeah, I think so, because it involves one or more human beings. So this to me was not disappointing, because I felt that they weren't going to give anything. And essentially they made comments as, you know, this is not the day. You know, this is the day. This is a day for Abby and Libby to celebrate justice, the wheels of justice starting to move. A lot of people are going to be disappointed because, as you know, Ed, we're living in a world where everybody wants to get information. And they talked about the importance of keeping this thing close throughout the whole 5.5 years. This superintendent and all the investigators said, we're not releasing information. We don't even have cause and manner of death. The autopsy was never released on both of these poor, precious girls, young teenagers, 13 and 14 years old, Abby and Libby German. This is just, you know, again, people are going to be disappointed, but Ed, you know, this is in the best interest of justice, no?
Yeah, well, they're keeping the information sealed to protect the evidence, and especially since I feel there's another party involved, and they don't want that information getting out to the party that they're looking for. You know, I mean, I have mixed thoughts on the press conference, honestly.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. I'm disappointed, but at the same time, I wasn't expecting much. But I was expecting a little more than that. The only thing that they did, in my eyes, is they cleared up this $20 million bail that was put out there, that he had this huge $20 million bond. There was never an official confirmation. The district attorney did come up to the podium and he did say that there is no bond. But he also talked about dates going forward. I wrote down a couple of the dates. I believe it was the 23rd of January, a hearing, and then March trial to commence. So, you know, that's about all we got. We didn't get any pedigree. We got no photo released. I thought for sure they were going to release the mugshot photo, because under Indiana state law, I believe that they are required to make at least a notification to the public that they have this guy in custody. So I don't know exactly what they're required to release, but I'm sure that they did it by the letter of the law here. But we're all disappointed. Let us know in the chat if you're disappointed in the amount of information. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Ed.
just think about how many times they said it felt like it was the opening of cops. All parties are innocent until proven guilty in a court of law.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Okay. You made probable cause to a judge for an arrest warrant. So okay, that's a very high bar to set. It's not beyond
Yeah.
a reasonable doubt, which is what you get at
Right.
trial. But that said, the
Yeah, look at this. Photos being released after press conference. Why not really why not release it during a press conference? I think maybe it was a matter of respect. Don't forget, the family members, the surviving family members were in that audience. They were there. And I think this was more about, hey, we talked about getting justice for these girls for 5.5 years. We did it. We have this guy in custody. We're going to have to eventually hear more about this. I got the dates. It's January 13th. I got it wrong. 2023 for preliminary, and then March 20th of 2023 is the tentative start of the trial. He pled not guilty. We got that. That's no secret. Any criminal defense attorney is going to tell him, what do you got to lose, right? Who's going to plead guilty other than Chris Watts? But,
yeah, folks, don't read into don't equate the no bond to the evidence, okay? Because there's a lot more that goes into that. Okay, it could be, he's a flight risk. There could be any number of things. I mean, and this is not like the revolving door justice that we have here in New York City with no bail and so forth and so
right.
on. So could it? I'm sure it plays it has some impact rather. The evidence that was established to this judge. But again, it's yeah, I agree, Clumsy. It's I have mixed emotions about what just happened.
Yeah,
I mean,
and Alicia says it well here, and I concur wholeheartedly with that. Justice is more important than public curiosity. Yeah, amen to that.
yeah, I understand what she's saying, but I guarantee you those reporters are going right now with a Freedom of Information lawsuit to try to get that information pried out.
And that's where, I heard the superintendent in previous press conference say that sometimes the press can be our best friends and sometimes it can be our worst enemies when you're trying to fight for justice for a family.
What was that last question that you put up, Ron?
Here it is. Ed, how can they know they will be finished looking at the case by the hearing and then the trial? I don't understand.
Okay, so maybe their investigation has already identified individual parties, and they just haven't located them. Maybe
Right.
they have the evidence, and that's why they want it sealed, because they don't want this individual to know the gig is up. They got him, and they're just trying to find him. Maybe that's why the marshals are there too. All right, because the marshals hunt down fugitives.
But why did they release to the media that they were going to have the U.S. Marshals present at this press conference and they didn't talk? When we think about the Marshals, we think about multi-state agencies. And I worked, in warrants, and I know, your son works, doing similar
Warrants, yeah.
stuff like that. Yeah, and warrants. We have the U.S. Marshals Task Force that's embedded with FED.
Fugitive Task Force, yeah.
Right. So, when you hear conversations about the U.S. Marshals involved, now you're thinking about, hey, did this perp cross state lines after committing this crime and then come back, which is a possibility, and they were tracking him? When did this whole case against Richard Allen start developing? These are some of the things that people were hoping today that we would get something. Hey, we received a anonymous tip, or we matched up DNA evidence to this perpetrator. But again, I said, over the weekend, this is going to be brief, but I didn't think it was going to be that little information. I was surprised when I was watching it.
I thought they would give at least some pedigree information on the arrested party here. I just there was no reason why not to give that.
Yeah.
Okay. But like I said, I think they're holding their cards close to the vest because there's an open party out there.
Correct. And Vixen Bo, she sends in a $20 super chat and says, "This is so heart-wrenching. Although I have, like others, waited for this day." And, that's kind of the thing. Today, they kept saying today is not the day to release the information. But remember, on Friday they were saying today is the day, meaning that they made the arrest. So there's all of these, kind of quoted uh, phrases here. I think that these investigators and the team that's involved in this long 5+ year investigation are doing this out of respect for the family. There's going to be a time, there'll be a day for all of this to come to light, and it's not going to be pretty. Ed, you and I talked off camera about the bloody crime scene that they talk about, and that they lost there was so much blood lost during the commission of this crime. I mean,
And the FBI was involved in this, and they did warrants. The FBI made an application, got a warrant, and searched houses involved in this case early on. So again, why was the FBI involved in a local homicide?
yeah,
It seems to be like there's some kind of federal nexus here.
right. And FBI, everyone thinks the Federal Bureau of Investigation, they are not in the business of investigating homicide cases as the lead agency. They are always there to supplement with, forensics, with resources, manpower, and so forth. But Ed, you work in close contact with a lot of multi-agencies. I mean, this is not their thing. They're not out there working homicide cases. They are supplementing them. Correct me if I'm wrong.
On the state and local level, unless there's some federal crime associated with it. Right. Other than that, yeah.
Yeah. So they're not handling over, a huge volume of these things, but they definitely do, provide a great amount of resources. When we talked about our previous cases in the in little baby Quentin Simon's case, the FBI came from Quantico and is continuing searching at that landfill. So that's a good thing when you see that, because you have smaller agencies that are not equipped to handle some of the processing of evidence. So that's always a good thing. Ed, I just wanted to read: capital punishment in Indiana is a legal penalty. The last man executed in the state of Indiana, excluding federal executions at the federal prison in Terre Haute, was the last person was Matthew Wrinkles, executed in 2009. So it is on the books. We'll hear more from the prosecutor if they're going for these charges. Ed, if that was a sneeze, bless you. I don't want to seem callous here.
No, it wasn't a sneeze. No, thank you.
All right. Dr. Ed Moskowitz and Julie sends in a thank you to 1999 Super Chat. Thank you both, DutyRon and Ed. Always professional, caring, and humble. Amen to that, Doc. And thank you.
Thank you, Doc. Thank you, Justin.
Yep. While yet still today, send in a $2 super sticker. Trying to find it, but it's buried in this chat. Let's go to some of the folks in the chat. Let me see. Pedo Ring. Yeah, listen, we got this Anthony Schatz, Keegan Kline character, right? He's alleged to have communicated with one or both of the girls the night before. Is there an nexus? Is there a connection?
Right. He used a false account, right?
Yeah, this guy is,
what do you call it? Catfishing, when you put somebody else's photograph on your account?
Correct. And that's what he did. He catfished to get a lot of naked and nude photos of underage kids. We talked about Logan. FBI said that there was probable cause to make an arrest in the murders of these girls, but he died in 2020. I'd like to eventually hear more about him and everything that involves, because criminal defense attorneys are going to have a field day with the amount of potential suspects and or perpetrators that they named in this case along the way. I mean, that you have been called by not only the prosecution, but the defense in some cases, right, Ed?
Yes.
So how strongly will they be contesting all of these different multiple perps that they named across the 5.5 years in this case, Ed?
Well, it's tough to say because we don't know what kind of evidence there is.
Yeah.
We don't know the exact case they have against all these people. Well, I mean, they have, what a defense is going to do in a case like this is say, my client is innocent. You got the wrong guy, and point the finger in the direction of the other people. Okay. Right. And he said, well, this guy's a pedophile, and this guy's this, and this guy's that. And, you had him on your radar, but you never arrested him. Right. So forth. And they're going to deflect, so, Well, yeah, Clumsy, everybody's guaranteed a speedy right to trial. Now, if the defense gets involved and say, "Hey, slow down," they could slow this down.
Right.
Um,
And,
so
and the judge could grant them time if they need to review documents. Let me put Trevor's super chat up there. Oh, we're fighting. Ed and I are fighting. Go ahead.
I'm trying to put it up. You're trying to put it.
I was.
Go ahead. It's you.
Trevor Lee down in East Tennessee. Thank you for your friendship, Trevor, down by Baby Summer Wells. He sends in a $5 super chat. He says, awaited justice is better than a tainted case. But I share the disappointment as well. I just hope that they nail this sick guy for those poor families. Yeah, we need a true bill indictment because this is the first phase of the arrest process and the justice system. You get a true bill indictment by grand jury, and then you proceed to trial. So we need to get these two other components completed successfully.
They released information on Friday that they made an arrest in this case, right? And then they did this press conference today. Did we learn much more than we learned on Friday?
No.
So, as you know, a show of hands, or give me a one, if you believe that this press conference did what it was purported to do. It was for the girls. It was for the family. Do you feel that they met that with this press conference?
And the community.
Yeah.
Yeah, put a 1 in the chat if you agree with that. Put a 2 if you feel that you don't agree with it. I mean, I'm going to automatically put a 1 in the chat because I agree wholeheartedly that they did the right thing. This is not about us. It's about the family, the victim, and their families, and the community, the people of the community. But listen, you're never going to have everybody agreeing. We heard from the prosecutor there's no bond. We heard about the dates, the court dates that are coming up. They're going to release a photo. It's going to be gross to look at his photo. This is a person who's, accused. He's innocent until proven guilty. Richard Allen will photo of his arrest process intake. We'll get that. Sheriff Carter says a peace came over him as he was driving to the house of worship where they gave this press conference. He was sniffling. I don't know if that was from allergies or if he was, at first I thought, this guy's real emotional, but it happened during the whole course of that thing. So he had some type of post-nasal drip happening there, it seemed, or he was very emotional, either or. But nonetheless, I mean, we live in a day and age where everybody wants information and it comes at a price when you give too much information. So we need a guilty verdict at the end of trial, which will commence, as we found out, tentatively March 20th, 2023, and we wait. That's all we can do. But this is going to cause the $20 million bond that was alleged out there. That was false information. It was just probably a fake book rumor that people ran with. Tasha's laughing post nasal. I mean, I could be wrong. He could just have allergies, So we don't know if Keegan Klein was involved or not. Brenda Redmond, thank you for that question. They didn't make a mention about any of the former perps. They didn't talk about Logan. They didn't talk about the Paul Edders kidnapping and raping of a 26-year-old. He died by suicide. They didn't talk about any of, and for those of you who are following this thing closely, did you feel that at least they were going to talk about some of the past perps? Nobody was arrested. That's the good thing. So no defense attorney could say, well, you arrested such and such and such. But they did name in an FBI document, they named Logan as a person that they feel probable cause is there to effect an arrest for the murders. They just released his mugshot. I've yet to see it. Anybody that has it, send it to me on DutyRon.com and I'll post it up here. In the meantime, Ed, I'll put you full screen and I'll scour the internet for it. You got the show, Ed. You're in charge.
Okay. Yeah. So there's questions about, they got this indictment. They got this arrest warrant. Probable cause was found by the judge to go out and arrest this person. So I'm gathering they have strong forensic evidence that points them there. Probably some digital forensics, text, internet activity, emails, In addition, I hope they were able to garner a lot of forensics from these poor victims, and that would link them back to this suspect here, DNA, hairs and fibers, maybe some fingerprints, maybe they got the digital analysis of the photographs and the sound that was recorded on the phone, the video and so forth. They can enhance that. The FBI and FBI, NSA, NASA. There's so many different federal agencies that have high-tech equipment that could do voice analysis of the recorded tape after they cleared it up, or in terms of the video, if they were
Is
able
now
to.
charged with 2 counts of
Sorry,
murder.
that's me.
We understand
Okay.
the probable cause in
I don't
this
even know where it
case
is.
sealed.
Where is it?
So
Hit mute.
frustrating, of
Hold on.
course, for the media trying to get pictures, but as we heard,
All right.
Doug Carter there, the superintendent with the state police,
Okay.
of course, the
All
county
right.
prosecutor,
Hold
Nick
on. I don't
McClelland,
even know where it is.
that is sealed.
Well, you got it up on the screen. There you
For
go.
a reason. So
Well,
there
you got to
are
shut the sound down.
things that just they need to keep close to the vest during the
Yeah.
rest
Hold
of the
on.
He
investigation.
actually started off speaking, I'd say, very
Well,
emotional, which
I
I
got
mean,
it.
you can
I got it.
imagine being so close to
I
this.
shut my third monitor off and it was on there.
okay. So many monitors, so little time.
Yeah, I have the photo, by the way.
So okay. So also they could have enhanced, like I said, the video and individual, and then use artificial intelligence and software to do facial recognition. In addition, folks, there's been many cases made by identifying the clothing that the suspect is wearing. We have class characteristic evidence in clothing, but we also have individualistic evidence in clothing. I was once there was a case where they were able to match the blue jeans of a bank robber to the blue jeans in possession of the suspect by minute details of the seam along the right leg of the pants, by counting up the number of visible seam bumps. How in blue jeans along the side where they stitch together the back and the front portion of the leg, it creates a pattern, and they were able to enhance that pattern and match it directly to article of clothing that was worn by a bank robber.
Wow. I mean, the amount of technology that's out there. I wanted to ask you this, and now you just reminded me by speaking about that. Can you just tell the audience from 2017 to fast forward to 2022, going into 2023, how advanced has DNA or crime scene processing had, 5.5 years? Is it a tremendous, or is it still pretty much in line of what was in place at that time, Ed? Because everybody's curious about that.
No. I mean, there's advancement in DNA every day. I'll go back to 9/11. So that happened in 2001, right? And so we still have, a little more than half of the people have been identified in the human remains have been identified. Now we have the rest. I think, I don't know, over 30,000 body parts dehydrated in storage at a lab. It's actually in the World Trade Center Museum. That every time the new DNA extraction technology comes out, the analysts will go to these parts and utilize that technology to try to extract the genetic markers that we have yet to yield a profile from these parts, to identify these parts so that they can get them back to their loved ones. Okay. So yeah, every day it's coming. I mean, when I first started in the 90s, you needed about a silver dollar, if worth of blood to get a DNA profile using RFLP. Then just a short time later,
What is RFLP?
Restricted fragmented length polymorphism. You had to ask, right? Okay. Yes. And then that was the OJ DNA. Let's just put that. Everybody knows OJ's case. So that was the DNA used to go after OJ. Now, then the next step was short tandem repeats. Okay. STR, as it was called, and PCR, polymerase chain reaction. Okay, and as these different techniques came about, you needed smaller and smaller amounts of genetic material. Then we go to touch DNA, which is known as also low copy number, LCN. Okay, where it's not even visible. You can't see it with your naked eye. All you have to do is swab a surface, and then that surface potentially could yield multiple DNA profiles for individuals. So again, it keeps progressing and progressing and progressing. Like everything else, it evolves, and it's getting better and better for our business here in criminal investigations.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's the good news for justice, for people that are looking for justice, is that, that was the picture. I couldn't grab a full screen shot of it, so I'm going to look on DutyRon.com and see if anybody's got it. But yeah, justice it's in the process of being served. And it really, today is not a day that everyone is going to be happy, because I'm going to tell you right now, people want this information and they want it yesterday. But the family has to be very emotional. I looked at some tweets from her sister. I looked at some other tweets from the family, and basically they know they're in for now seeing and hearing. It's almost like being re-victimized all over again, because they're going to have to go through, very detailed, graphic things that had happened to these girls, and it's going to be traumatizing.
I believe that the investigators involved had given a private briefing to this family before they broke the news.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, there's no question about that. I mean, you see how engaged they are with them and how respectful they are being with this family. There's no question that they definitely debriefed them, maybe even over the weekend. And I saw a couple of people in the chat say, "Well, why didn't they just go and give this press conference on Friday?" I think they needed time to get their ducks in order and so forth. And like you said, again, getting this information out is going to only do one thing. It could potentially hurt the case. And the last thing that these law enforcement professionals and people on the judicial side, prosecution and so forth, they don't want to mess this thing up by putting it out too early.
Right, and you can't give too much information to the family, especially if they're going to be witnesses at the trial. If they're going to get on the stand and testify, so you don't want to taint them as a witness. So you give them what you can to be respectful and to understand that they are hurting, and this is a long time coming.
Right.
So, and the family has been critical. I've seen news articles in my research of the case where the family has been critical of the investigation. And so I think the press conference was also about that. They wanted to, tell the community, hey, we never let this go. And this is the result.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree wholeheartedly. But like, again, we're never going to get everybody to be in agreement that, oh, this was the right thing to do. Here's a question. Charlie said, was he arrested based on DNA evidence? That's a question that everybody had.
We don't know, because everything is sealed.
Right.
They didn't mention it.
Exactly. So today was a day of quiet, They were keeping everything close. Ed, scan the chat. I'm going to go look at my Facebook Messenger real quick.
Okay, we'll do. So, yeah, almost 6 years. That's correct. It's almost 6 years, and next February would have been 6. But long time coming, folks. And so, it just goes to show you, just because you don't hear anything, don't think that the police are not doing their jobs on this case. All right, they're out there dedicated and working on it behind the scenes. In fact, you can hear from the press conference that they formed a task force just for this particular case. So, yeah. I mean, it was a heinous case. 2 young girls. I'd like to get the backstory, the back criminal investigation as to why the girls were there. Was there any internet activity, social media activity that led the girls there? It was a school day. They took off of school, and they were dropped there.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, there was some conversation online about their Snapchat communication with this Anthony Schatz, Keegan Klein guy. I think that was confirmed that he contacted them the night before, and that's what made everybody say, "Hell, you know, wait a minute, you know, there may be co-conspirators involved in this thing," and you know that potential is still there. It's still on the table. You know,
Now here's another thing, folks. If this defendant had never been arrested, then he's not going to have a DNA profile.
correct.
Okay, so if they may have gotten DNA early on in the investigation, and they had no one in the database to match it. So again, so what do we do if you develop this right now with all the ancestry.com, 23andMe, and so forth and so on that are out there? These are open source databases now that law enforcement can tap into without a warrant. You can just go in there and look, and you can pull that genetic profile down off their servers and compare it to what you have. So maybe there was a family, or what we call a familia, DNA hit that led them to this. It's not the first time this has happened. There's many cold cases that this is happening now, and so that led them to this perp. Or there's another way we can do things, right? And it's called discarded DNA. So if you have you don't have enough probable cause at the time to get a warrant to seize somebody's DNA, well, you just keep an eye on that individual. And when they discard something as trash on public street or whatever the case may be, well, they have no longer a right to privacy to what they throw away. Okay, I'm not saying go digging through their garbage, but that's a different thing. I'm just saying if you follow them around, they smoke a cigarette butt and they toss it on the ground, that's yours. You can take that, run and get a genetic profile off of it, and then put it in the system and see if this is your guy, because that happens all the time.
Right. And could that have been possibly what they were doing on that property in the days that led up to this guy's arrest? You know, you never do know. Let's see. I got it up. Thank you, Shannon, for sharing that. Took me a little while to get this because I was signed out of my Facebook, and I don't know my password by heart. So this is from the Indiana State Police on Facebook. I'm so used to calling it that. So there's a statement that they put out on here. Let me see if this is worth arrest made. And then they showed us, this is the defendant's mugshot. Really spooky looking picture of this guy, but it's not anything, Richard Allen, 50, Delphi, Indiana. He lived amongst this community. And it's also been alleged that this guy came to searches for Abby and Libby. Can you imagine?
No, that happens all the time.
Oh, I know.
One of the things that we used to do in crime scene for the detectives is that when we had homicides, body on the scenes, outdoors, especially when there was large crowds of onlookers, we would photograph the onlookers from inside the crime scene.
Wow. Yeah. I talked about that over the weekend, how I used to do that.
Because the perps would come and look at you. Who was famous for doing that were arsonists. They loved to come back to the crime scene and watch the emergency responders fight their fires and, look at the criminal investigation. Yeah, so we would photograph the, do a 360 from inside the crime scene of the onlookers, hoping to catch somebody. And then, inevitably we'd work with the detectives and we'd tell detectives what we're about to do. And we said, okay, now you keep an eye on the crowd when we take these photographs. And if you see someone turning around or looking elsewhere or running off, you may want to go find that person or go talk to that person.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the crazy part, is that they want to come back and see the damage that they've done, because that's part of their criminal psyche, their sickness, the evilness, or whatever it is. As a pharmacy tech, there was questions, and thank you for bringing that up in the chat. I think it was, who was it that I just saw? Cammy. As a pharmacy tech, there's a question also out there, Ed. Did this guy have to go through a process of fingerprinting, identification. I know my niece is a pharmacist, so she went to school. We call her doctor. So she, she went through extensive training as a CVS pharmacy tech. Do you know anything about that, Ed? Like what they'd have to go through?
Well, I don't know if they're licensed. I know the pharmacists are licensed, right? And
Like an assistant, no?
yeah, I understand that, but I don't think the techs have a license. I'm not sure. I'm not sure about the pharmacist
I see what's
credentials.
yeah.
But I know pharmacists are state licensed, and that requires also, I believe, a background check and fingerprinting.
Right.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, we're going to look into it. It's a certification program, apparently. I did some quick research on it over the weekend, and it looks like it's almost like when we go to the Department of State. Not that they would go through the Department of State on it for the armed guard license. You got to get fingerprinted. You got to get, and if that in fact was the case, he became a tech in 2018.
Okay, so we have something here. I'll post this up here.
Okay.
Maybe. Oh, missed it. No, that's the one. So I work at CVS, and they have a pharmacy tech has to have a license, and no fingerprints though. Right. Okay. So is it a license or is it a certification? And if it's a certification, is it coming from the state or is it coming from some other entity?
Thank you, Muggles Munchies. I like your screen name, by the way. Send me a message on DutyRon.com if you can about that. I always appreciate that. So Kathleen says she's a retired pharmacy tech. It may vary from state to state, Ed.
Yeah.
Hey, I wanted to just say thank you to everyone who's joining in, and if you're new, please consider hitting the subscribe button and hit that notification bell so you'll get all things DutyRon and Ed Wallace when we go live or upload a video. We want to say thank you to everyone who gives a thumbs up. If you guys can, whoever's here with us, if you appreciate this video, please give it a thumbs up, like, and subscribe to this community. We're retired law enforcement professionals, and we'd always appreciate you guys subscribing to the channel. It's free.
See, here's one in New Jersey where they do get fingerprinted. Okay, because I know New York does. I mean, even a hairstylist who gets a license in New York has to get fingerprinted because they're not going to give you the license if you're, a convicted felon, a sex offender, or anything like that.
Yeah. Anybody that has any questions relating to forensics or DNA or anything in regards to, Abby and Libby, this Delphi Indiana case, put it in the chat. And we're going to wrap it up in a few. Go ahead, Ed.
Now, okay. DNA can last a very long time, folks. And if the spatter is involved, where you have a force impacting blood that's creating small stains, you might not be able to see it with your naked eye, and it could land on an article of clothing like a jacket. Okay, and you wouldn't see it, especially if it's a dark jacket. Remember, I showed you how to, sometimes you can't see blood on black clothing, and I showed you how we used infrared and ultraviolet to bring out those blood stains. Now, I know of cases, cold cases, where there was originally suspects in the cold case that were thought to have been at the crime scene at the time, and based upon description of the clothing, they were years later were able to get their hands on jackets and things of that nature, and then did a thorough examination of the jacket and found sub-millimeter, almost microscopic blood stains that were projected onto the jacket from the victim's blood on the jacket. And the only way that could have occurred is if that individual wearing the jacket was at the scene at the time of the attack. Okay, and then that was enough evidence to get an arrest warrant and a prosecution in that case, and that was, I don't know, 12 years later. But see, if the person doesn't know this particular bloodstain is on an article of clothing, and they don't wash their jackets or regularly or whatever the case may be, don't even know that it requires to be washed or something, so it could sit there on those articles of clothing, and then it would be good evidence if law enforcement could find it.
That's fantastic information, and hopefully they could, utilize this method in this case. But that's fascinating. I didn't even know that, Ed. Rebecca, she says, DutyRon and Ed, I worked for Quorum CVS. That's out in Suffolk County.
I know exactly where it is. Route 112, right?
There you go. So probably about 30 of them on there. Back in 2017, and they did a thorough background check on me during the hiring process. I'm surprised Ricky's background was so clean. And that's what Ed talked about. Ed and I said, if the guy has no criminal history, he's not going to be in any databases, right? With the exception, again, of these background checks, employers do not report their private background checks to the police. They're looking for hits from the police, based on their background check, right, Ed?
Yeah.
So
they're not obligated to.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
Carrie Kenny of WRTV has a little post on. Let me show this quickly, because I know everybody likes visuals. I gotta get a better system here, Ed. I can't even find my mouse.
I know for my New York State, New Jersey State private investigators licenses, I got to get fingerprinted.
Yeah, I mean, I got fingerprinted when I applied for my New York State armed guard license, but I didn't. Obviously they're not going to keep fingerprinting you year after year. They do it once, and it's your footprint.
Only in New York. New Jersey fingerprint you every time you have to renew. It's crazy. I said, look, my fingerprints don't change, so
Right.
somebody's making money off of this.
Yeah, that's so stupid. So she's just got another post. Looks like she took a picture from at the press conference. They might have put that up on the screen. It looks like it's on some projector screen.
This guy looks like the guy that maintenances my boat.
Yeah. All right, Ed. So I think that we covered what we can cover here. I think we should let everybody get on with their day. Let me just read what she wrote, because I tried to put that up there. This reporter puts, Richard Matthew Allen, 50, is now officially charged with murder in the Delphi killings of Abby Williams and Libby German. Richard Matthew Allen has lived in Delphi in the community for 16 years. Records show Allen, 50 years old, lives in a residential neighborhood on Whiteman Drive in Delphi. Property records show Richard and Kathy Allen have owned the home currently. This is all public information, by the way, valued at $171,800 since 2006. The home is a half mile from the Delphi Community Middle School, where Abby Williams and Libby German attended. Allen's house is also about 2.5 miles from the Monon High Bridge Trail, where Abby and Libby disappeared and were later found dead a short distance. Allen has a limited criminal history. So he has a criminal history. She says limited. WRTV found 2 speeding tickets, which are vehicle and traffic violations. It's not a criminal. That's not penal law. WRTV found 2 speeding tickets, one in Jasper County in 2011, which won't yield fingerprints, and another one in Fulton County in 2005. Listen, I got a failure to stop at a stop sign ticket from a state trooper before I became a cop.
Hey, let me just back that up there. First of all, I don't like the assertion that if you got a motor vehicle violation, it's criminal. Okay.
Well, I mean, if driving without suspended driver's license, it's a misdemeanor. I get it, but she's talking about traffic infractions.
Yeah, traffic infractions. I mean, please, really, that's criminal history. But having said that, now you made a comment. Now, depending on this jurisdiction, Indiana, if he has to actually touch the citation, the ticket, or the summons, I don't know what they call it. It's called something different in every jurisdiction, where he has to sign it.
Citation.
Yeah, where he has to sign it. Many jurisdictions require, when you're giving you a motor vehicle violation, you sign a document and touch it.
Right.
Okay. Well, that document, that paper that you touched, could potentially have his fingerprints and DNA on there, in addition to his handwriting. But I don't know that the handwriting would be beneficial in this type of case. But at least that fingerprint and DNA can be a source that they could tap into. And if they realize, hey, he's got this, and we do this in this jurisdiction, they could pull that paper because that DNA is not going anywhere. That fingerprint is not going anywhere. It's absorbed into the paper. Okay.
Correct. Yeah, no,
And
you're right. You're right. Yeah. And they could lift something. I know where you're going with this, Ed.
Hey, listen, we've identified Nazi war criminals this way. Okay. They're saying, oh, it's not me. It's not me. But why is your fingerprint on this paper that's over 50 years old?
Right. Right. Yeah. No, you're right. Here, WRTV found 2 speeding tickets, one in Jasper in 2011, one in 2005 in Fulton County. In 2005, the case shows Allen was going 74 and a 55. In some places, that's an arrest, believe it or not. If you're going a certain amount over the speed limit, it's considered reckless driving as well. But the cases were dismissed because Allen reached a pretrial diversion agreement, which is a plea deal with the prosecutors. Allen also had a seatbelt violation in Miami County in 2003. Richard Allen is a licensed pharmacy tech in the state of Indiana. Records show his pharmacy license does not expire until June 30th of 2024. WRTV is working to confirm if he worked at the CVS in Delphi, but we heard from people that said that he actually served them at the counter. He also allegedly checked out family members from these 2 girls at that very pharmacy. WRTV called the phone numbers listed for Allen and his family, but they were either not answered or hung up on when they picked up. So people, the press is doing their job. That's Kara Kenny from WRTV. I'm going to subscribe to her because she's got some decent information. But yeah, Ed, you bring up so many great points about DNA and these old tickets, and that's fascinating information for everybody to absorb.
I was a consultant about a cold case, and there was a fingerprint that was collected in this homicide case, and there was nobody in the system that it matched to. Okay. So they wanted to look for other sources of identification, and they went through, the cold case squad went through all of the evidence that was there, and they didn't find anything that yielded additional forensic evidence or DNA. So I said, do we still have the original fingerprint card with the tape lift? And the detective said yes. And I said, well, go get it. And what you could do is peel the tape off the card backing, swab the backing where the fingerprint was on the card, okay, and see if you can get DNA off of this, because fingerprints contain DNA. And sure enough, he did. He got the DNA, and off the back of the fingerprint card once he removed the fingerprint tape that held the fingerprint. And now they're searching all the 23andMe, Ancestry.com, and they're trying to find some familiar genetic link so they can go that route.
Wow. It's fascinating the amount of science and tech, the technical stuff that can be done here that people don't have any idea. So, yeah, Pam, I already showed the mugshot. DutyRon sent you the mugshot on Facebook. Thank you, Palm Dari. Much appreciated. Everybody, I just opened up my Facebook Messenger and there's like 8 different people who sent in the mugshot. So thank you for that. We showed it already. You never really know, Ocean Girl. You never really know who people really are. It is scary because evil walks amongst us, right, Ed? I mean, we know that because we worked, 2+ decades in some of the most high crime areas in New York City. It's crazy. You got to always be like Ed says, be prepared, stay safe, watch your 6. I love that statement. Isn't 23andMe how they got the Golden Gate Killer?
Yes, that's correct. They put that profile compared it against the database there, and was able to pull this cold case murderer up. Phil Lilio, he writes, "What about saliva under a stamp from mail?" Yeah, absolutely. And the old saliva, you lick the envelope. Also, I'll tell you a funny story about that. With the anthrax investigation, there was there was an unopened letter of filled with anthrax that was recovered from the New York Post building, and when it was in the New York Post was segregating their mail into suspicious versus non-suspicious, and so the suspicious mail was put in a bag, and our emergency service unit and FBI and so forth searched this bag when we became aware that there was a bag full of suspicious mail, and they found the unopened letter filled with anthrax in it. And then some rocket scientists in my presence said to me, "Oh, that's great. Maybe we can now get the DNA off the envelope from where the suspect licked it closed." And I just looked at him and said, "So what you're telling me is the guy filled the envelope with anthrax and then he licked it? Okay, thank you very much."
Yeah. Good story, Ed.
It should be easy to find him. He should be dead somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. Foaming at the mouth. A lot of great questions coming in. People are asking why is he only charged with 2 counts of murder? I think those charges may, and I use the word may with caution, there may be additional, unauthorized disposal of a corpse, things of that nature. I think there'll be, but they're going for listen, the 2 charges of murder, if it's first degree, this will be a capital punishment crime. And that's pretty much the wham banger that's going to, put him upon conviction, put him down, or, let him rot in a cell, in a small cell. Hopefully he rots slowly. But yeah, so that's what we got going on. And I think, Ed, we covered everything that we can cover. Aussie J says, "I love Ed's stories." Yeah, guys, again, if you haven't taken the chance to go and give this stream a thumbs up, I would really appreciate that. If you guys could do that. Let me see if I can gift away some memberships here.
Hey, Lauren, you wrote COVID tests are good for DNA. The problem with that is once the swabs are mixed with the solution used to extract the material to do the DNA quick test, or in this case if you're doing the antibody antigen test, that liquid is very, very bad for genetic markers.
There you have it. And people would just assume that would be enough right there. Hey guys, if we can
The
get
swab itself, yeah, you take a swab, boom, a nasal swab, we use it all the time. Yeah.
Let's get the thumbs up to 1,500, and then I will gift out 20 free memberships. Who's interested in a free channel membership? Ed, I know we like to always do this. I haven't done this in a while.
Oh, let me get the sound effects.
I want to do it and wrap it up because you guys have been really great hanging out with us here. I know many of you are new. KC is saying, "I love this channel." We love you, so thank you. I haven't gifted memberships in probably maybe 2 weeks, 3 weeks.
Are you gonna sing the Barney song now?
I am not.
Okay.
Nope. No, I love you. You love me. Nope. All right.
You just did.
I didn't do it all. I'm waiting for the thumbs up. So there's a bunch of people here. Give the video a thumbs up, not just in the chat, but go over to the little thumbs up thing, tickle it, hit the thumbs up button. And as soon as we hit that 1,500, I will gift out some free memberships. Who wants to be free? Who doesn't want something free? Everybody likes a freebie. Karen from Legal Minded Friends, Karen Cole says, "Ed and DutyRon, you have such a wealth of experience providing us with answers to incidents that we have such a hard time understanding. Thank you." And if you guys aren't subscribed to Legal Minded Friends, Karen Cole, she's in the UK. She's a criminal defense attorney, and she does a lot for the community and a lot of pro bono stuff over there. I don't know if that's what they call it there, but Karen is really cool people. Go over and check out her channel. If one of the mods can drop it in the link here, that'll be great. All right, I'm waiting. We're getting there slowly but surely. Ed, slowly but surely. Let me know when you get the audio ready, the audio ready, and I'll gift out these memberships. 1.1K. I'm waiting. I think maybe half of the people in here just go over and just boop, hit it. We'll get to it. If not, there's always next time. Hey, I wanted to just also mention too, for those of you who are checking in, Superintendent Carter, when he was at the podium, um, what I really liked about what he did is instead of going straight to business to talk about, the case, he addressed the family directly, and that's what we talk about here on Crime Time with Duty Ron. It's respecting the victims and respecting their families. And I really believe that he did do that. He did a really great job of that. Ed just gave me the thumbs up. Looks like we are ready, but we're not ready because there's only 1.1K on the thumbs up, Ed. So,
Uh-oh.
yeah.
Come on, folks.
Yeah,
Hit that thumbs up.
make a plea to them. Do it for Ed.
Who wants this free membership?
That is providing my credit card goes through, Ed.
The one you just made yesterday?
Yeah. Thank you. All right. Yeah. So Lacey Fontenot says we know nothing more from what we knew from Friday. I beg to differ. We know some court dates. We know that there's no bond. We know that that's pretty much all that we found out today. But we don't know anything of substance. But we definitely have some court information. We have his next appearance, which is 1/13/23, and then we have a tentative trial date of the 20th of March.
Here's the thing, folks, too, with this investigation, and that's why I think they left it open, because I do believe there's another party involved here. We have 2 victims and 1 person, and they were allegedly killed someplace else and moved to this location. Okay. I believe that he had help, and I believe they believe he had help, and that's why they're looking for that second body in this case.
Yeah, I believe that as well, because the more I think about this case, and like you and I both know, to pull off a double murder like this, it's kind of, I mean, it's not impossible, but you're out in the middle of nowhere. It wasn't like there was a lot of people around. So to pull this thing off and to stage it the way they talked about it being staged, there's a good high possibility that he had, and there's a lot of people who believe that that he had a co-conspirator or someone that helped him.
It's amazing, what happens in these things. I had one perp kill 4 out of 5 friends in an apartment, one by one. He rounded them all up. And this was all over a bad drug deal. He got some bad drugs from these women, and they lived in a 2nd-story apartment in Queens. And he broke in there, killed the first woman with a hammer, then went upstairs and gathered up the rest of the victims, locked them in a bedroom, and one by one he took them out and murdered them. Well, not all of them. One escaped by jumping out the window, but these women were so scared that I don't know if they forgot or what. They had a loaded handgun in that bedroom, and no one ever thought to use the gun against this perp. So one by one, he would come in and take them out and kill them, torture them and kill them until the last one jumped out the window and ran away.
Oh, God.
Mm-hmm.
There's really just so many horrific crime scenes to talk about out there. And Ed, you've been on so many of them. So, I mean, we could probably just do a marathon 5-hour live stream and you could talk about these crime scenes. All right, let's do it. Because I got to get out of here. Go ahead, Ed. You might have to do it one more time.
All right.
All right, start it. Who wants a free membership? There we go. It's in the chat. Your gift has been announced. 20 memberships gifted by Crime Time with Duty Ron and Ed Wallace. Thank you, Ed. Thank you for the graphics. Christina got one. Christina Seymour, congratulations. Sonia was gifted by Ed and Ron. Deborah Ann. Ruth Ann Griffin. Oh, she's awesome. Lynn Harvey. These are all some cool people that are getting this. David Turley, Arlene Wiley, congratulations. Northern California Cubs fan, Leslie was gifted. Wow, look at all these gifts, Ed. It's like Christmas.
Awesome.
Like Christmas in October on Halloween. Kim S was gifted a membership. Oh, wow. Congratulations to everybody who got 20 free memberships, courtesy of Ed Wallace and Crime Time with DutyRon. We love to do this. It's all about giving back to you, the community who supports us. And I got to say thank you to the moderators, the replay viewers, the super chatters, the new channel members. Thank you so much for being here. Ed, what's your final thoughts on this? What what's the takeaway, and what's your what do you got for the troops, Ed?
Well, I think definitely there's more to come. There's probably, like I said, they're looking at somebody else, and probably a co-conspirator in this, and hopefully they'll develop the probable cause they need to get this individual. If they don't already have it, maybe they're just trying to track the person down, maybe moved away from this area. I mean, because this guy was a local, this one guy here, and so he knew that bridge, he knew that area. And if you do any research about this and you start reading these articles, you know that that bridge is very dangerous. So it's not some place that a stranger would normally walk, because these timbers are collapsing on this bridge. This train bridge doesn't get used. It hasn't had train activity in decades. And it's in various stages of disrepair and falling apart. So only the locals would know how to traverse this thing without getting themselves killed. So, maybe there was a local that was there, or somebody online that was in this, I don't know, pedophile group or sex trafficking group, or whatever the case may be. And so they're looking for them now, and hopefully to get their hands on them, and then have a much more thorough press conference after they get the missing party, if you will.
Yeah, they're definitely waiting, and they're waiting for a good reason. So, hey, listen, we all want that information. We all want to get what we, our curiosity, human nature. We want to hear about this, but at the end of the day, we need to be, we need to hold justice accountable, and they have to serve the people, and the state now has, the legal obligation to do the best that they can to bring justice forward.
Yeah. And now that they made a press conference and released the information on this individual, if there was other parties involved, they're in panic mode, and they're probably running.
Yeah.
Okay. So.
Absolutely. Hey, I want to thank everybody for joining. Thank you for being respectful. Again, this is a day for justice for Abby and Libby and their families, their surviving families and loved ones in the community. So as I always like to end these live streams, God bless the world, God bless the United States of America, and God bless each and every one of us here in the chat. And again, as I said in the beginning, we'll send it out to the families and the people of the community in Delphi. Strength, prayers, and positive vibes. Ed, what you got?
Okay, folks, my usual, please stay safe, stay prepared, and watch your six. But in addition, I want to just add another thing. Our elections are coming up in America, so go out and vote. Do your duty.
Absolutely. I will be there. And there's no doubt in my mind that most people here on Crime Time with DutyRon are going to go out and do their civic duty. All right. Peace and love from DutyRon and Ed Wallace. Thank you for joining us on this rare early morning live stream, and we'll see you on the next one. Ed, talk to you.
Peace.
Peace, guys.